Hey, what is up guys? This video is going to cover 5 of the most common BMW problems. So some of these things are going to be specific to my own car, which is a 2006 330xi, and some of these are just general BMW things that you're going to see on a lot of models from this era, like 2006 to 2011. And before I really get too deep into this, I just want to make it really clear, this video is not intended to scare anyone out of buying a BMW. They're really great cars as long as you know what to look for and you do your research. So this video is just meant to help people make an informed decision before they buy one of these cars. So let's get right into it. Just a little background on my own car. It was 8 years old when I bought it, but it only had 20,000 miles, so mechanically it was basically a new car. But anyway, the very first thing that happened when the car only had 30,000 miles was an ignition coil went bad. Now, ignition coil failure is pretty common on all modern cars. It just has to do with heat from the engine and the parts just being made out of plastic and rubber, which can cause them to break down prematurely. But for some reason, it just seems to be more common on BMW. So if you have one of these cars, you're thinking about buying one, that's definitely something that you're going to run into eventually. Now, the ignition coils for this car are only about $25, and it's a pretty simple DIY that you can do yourself in your driveway. So at $25 to replace, it's not really something that you have to lose sleep over, but it is something that you'll probably have to replace eventually if you own one of these cars. Another problem that happened with my car when it only had 40,000 miles on it was the blower motor for the heat and the air conditioning went out. So you could actually turn the heat on, but no air would come out of the actual vents. So this is something that's really common on pretty much all BMWs from 2006 to 2011, and it's caused by moisture and humidity building up inside the dashboard where the motor is located, causing it to corrode and fail prematurely. So typically when you have to replace the motor, there's another part, it's the resistor that controls the fan speed. That typically has to be replaced at the same time. The motor is about $150 and the resistor is $100, so you're looking at about $250 to replace these items. This is a pretty simple thing that you can install yourself. It is a little bit tough because it is in a tight space kind of above the glove box. It is definitely something that you could do on your own, but it's something that you'll probably experience at some point, especially if you own an older one like mine. Mine's 10 years old. I think the problem happened when the car was about 9 years old. I live in Michigan and it is extremely humid here in the summer, and I'm sure that that had a lot to do with it. But anyway, that's another thing that you could look forward to if you own one of these cars. Another really common thing with these cars is the water pumps going bad. Now, the water pump on BMW is a little bit different from a lot of other cars in that it is an electric water pump, whereas in most cars the water pump just runs off the belt from the engine, so as long as the engine is running it's constantly pumping coolant. With a BMW, it has its own separate electric motor. Now, while the engineering of this part is actually pretty clever because it doesn't have a parasitic effect on the engine, which gives you slightly better efficiency, the problem is maybe more in the execution of it. The part is made out of plastic and it definitely doesn't hold up quite as long as the traditional water pumps that have been around for years. I've had 2 cars in the past with over 150,000 miles on them and they still had the original water pumps. Now, what I've read on BMWs, I haven't had any problems with mine, but typically, you know, 60 to 80,000 miles is typically when the water pumps will fail. So while the engineering of it is kind of clever, it is unfortunate that they are a little bit more complicated. They're more expensive to replace at around $300, and they don't last nearly as long as the traditional water pumps that have been around forever. Now, along the same lines of the water pump is the thermostat. Now, just like the water pump, pretty much all cars have a really simple thermostat design. It's cheap to replace. On BMWs, it's a little bit more complicated. Everything's made out of plastic, so it can break easily. It's not going to last quite as long, and it's a lot more expensive to replace. So the thermostat for this car is around $80. Usually people will replace the water pump and the thermostat around the same time. So again, you're looking at $300 for the water pump and $80 for the thermostat. And typically these items are not going to be a DIY for most people. You'll probably want to take it into a shop to have these things done. Another really common problem, especially with my car with the N52 motor and the 2006 and 2007 model years, is a condition called valve lifter tick. And this is caused by driving the car short distances where the engine doesn't have time to reach operating temperature, and the hydraulic lift valves will make a really loud ticking noise that kind of sounds like a diesel motor. And here's a recording of what that sounds like so you know what to listen for. Now, in 2008 they did revise the design, and if you have this problem with one of the older ones, they can replace those with a newer design that's not going to have this issue. However, probably the best way to fix this problem is just by driving the car drive it a long enough distance where the engine has enough time to reach operating temperature and maintain that temperature for a long time. Usually the condition will remedy itself just from driving the car around, so it's not really something that you have to worry about replacing. It's just something that's bound to happen, especially when the motor has reached 50,000 miles, and especially if you're going to be driving shorter distances where the car doesn't really have enough time to heat up. Alright guys, I hope you found this video informative. I'm going to leave links in the description to all the items that I mentioned just in case you want to check the price for yourself, see how much this stuff really costs. If you own a BMW, please leave a comment below. Let me know what problems that you've had with your car. Maybe mention the amount of miles that were on the car when the problem happened and how much it costs to fix. We'd all be interested to know that. I'm sure it would help a lot of people who are watching this video trying to make an informed decision before they buy one of these cars. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.